Wow, this got nerdy.
Yeah, that got really weird.
If you want a second to breathe, I'll give you all of my love, I'll give you all that you need. Don't worry, I'm not in a hurry, not going nowhere, I'm not going nowhere, yeah. If you want a second to breathe, I'll give you all of my love.
Welcome to the 3% Podcast. This is Chad Post from Open Letter Books, and I'm here with Tom Roberge from Albertine Books and from New Directions. And this is actually a repeat podcast. There's now going to be a famous Lost podcast in which we recorded a very long podcast a week ago about festivals, Alta, the Penworld Voices, the festival, the Albertine Festival, New Literature from Europe Festival, the LA Times, the Texas Book Fair, the Miami Book Fair, and Wordstock. And we discussed all of these, and it was very interesting and fascinating, and the sound didn't work at all.
Yeah, it was the greatest podcast we ever recorded.
It was easily. It was entertaining, it was funny, and it was loaded with intelligence.
And it's all gone.
And it's gone.
Lost in the ether.
It's here. It's just the sound is just you couldn't make out like our voices. So yeah.
It comes in handy.
I suppose people would like that on a podcast, or we could just give them an hour of white noise.
Which, I mean, people do need white noise tracks to help them fall asleep at night. So.
My daughter uses white noise to fall asleep.
Your daughter?
Yeah, she uses an app on her phone. Not all the time.
She has trouble sleeping?
Not all the time. I think she does it when she doesn't want to hear anyone else doing anything. Like if she's going to bed, not necessarily early, but if we're watching TV or something, then she'll use that.
So before we get into the actual discussion here, since you mentioned your daughter, can I ask you, is she aware of the amazing Panthers meme going on right now on the internet?
The 8-1?
Yeah.
Yes, she is.
What are her thoughts on this?
She doesn't quite get it, but she thinks it's funny.
Well, that's kind of the thing, is there is nothing to get.
I know. I think it's hilarious.
It is hilarious. Like the people, like that initial Facebook thread where people were responding like, "No, I just looked it up on ESPN. They're 8-0." Like they just don't understand that they're being trolled. It's just beautiful.
It's amazing. Yeah, for anyone who has not seen this, there's places you can find it, but basically on the Carolina Panthers Facebook page, someone started this meme of where they're like, "Oh, it's great that the Panthers are undefeated at that point, 6-1." And someone else, and all these people were like, "Oh no, I searched Google and it says they're 7-0." And they're like, "Yeah, I don't trust Google. I only use Bing."
Yeah. That guy's the best.
It just goes on, and they're like, "No, they're undefeated." They're like, yeah, they're 7-1. 7-1.
At one point, somebody responds like, "Preseason doesn't count," which makes no sense at all. It's just great.
It's even better than, remember the greater than Tebow meme that happened on ESPN a couple of years ago?
Greater than, oh yeah.
Where it was like anything and there's like greater sign Tebow. It's even better than that, I think. I think this is the best.
It is really great. But the Panthers are great, and they're fun to watch, and they don't have Greg Hardy anymore, which,
Yep. We're very excited to be able to watch them on Thanksgiving, too.
Yeah, that's going to be a great game.
Yeah, because they don't have very many, and against Greg Hardy, but they don't have very many nationally televised games, so
no,
have to get lucky. But yeah, so football talk.
Football talk is over.
Well, yeah, which means that there's no mention of Michigan State and Ohio State in the rest of the podcast.
We'll let that one go.
We'll just let that. Yeah, you can. I'll just enjoy it privately. But we did talk, so with the festivals and stuff, like we had Alta, I guess it was almost a month ago now, and Alta is the American Literary Translators Association conference that's trying to do more and more with reaching out to different communities and people who would be interested in international literature. And the only thing that I think that was useful from that conversation that I thought was pretty fun was that we had this last event, which people may not have heard this story, but you're going to have to hear it again, Tom. But we had this final event that was their closing ceremony, and it was going to be a conversation between Valeria Luiselli and Mario Beattini. and in part because B18 was like a big influence on her when she was young. I mean, maybe not influence, but like a mentor and someone she looked up to and knew, and that they were friends. Well, at the last moment, like literally like the 2 days before I was leaving for the conference, Mario B18 called in and said that he couldn't come, called like his publisher and was like, I can't be there. And the reason why is that one of his old publishers had given back the rights to one of his books, one of his first books, and then decided that they wanted to print a new 20th anniversary edition, so they just did. So his new publisher was suing them. So it was like the two biggest publishers for the Spanish language world one suing the other one. They're in a big, huge court battle. So he had to literally be in court about literature instead of being at the conference, which is kind of nice and funny. But in exchange, he decided there were two things that he could do. One was show a movie which is the option we ended up doing, and this movie's pretty funny. I'll include a link to it here on this podcast post. But the movie's really funny. It's like an interview with him about his new book that's like 3 autobiographies, which is clearly ridiculous. And then it involves his mom showing off his testicles when he's a boy to women at a bathhouse. But it's kind of great. Anyways, the other option, and the one that I still wish we had done, was that some years ago, B18 hosted this. What did he call it? It was like a conference of doubles and doppelgangers. And it was supposed to have all these Spanish writers like Alvaro Enrique, Valeria, Sergio Pitol. All of these people are going to be in Paris for this conference, but none of them could make it. So he just hired random people and coached them on how to reply as if they were those authors. So like Sergio Pitol is played by like a 14-year-old girl. Like none of it had made any sense. But all these people came expecting to see these authors and they didn't. So we were going to have they're going to hire a day laborer from outside of Home Depot to pretend to be Mario B18 at the Alta conference, which would have been spectacular because I don't know how many people would have known that it wasn't him initially, except for the fact that B18 has a massive hook for a hand. Aside from that dead giveaway, a lot of people, and people might not have known that, they would have never known that this person wasn't Mario B18. It would have been really funny, but he backed out because he was afraid Valeria would be upset about it.
Yeah, that's too bad. Although a little deceptive, a little, a bit of a bait and switch going on there.
We could have admitted it at the end. Yes,
but still, it's like, I don't know how familiar you are with this, but the rapper MF Doom, wears a mask on stage, and there are rumors that he frequently is not actually performing, that somebody else is out on stage wearing his mask and sort of lip syncing or whatever. I guess you don't need to lip sync if you got a mask on. But basically the audio is just a recording of him, rapping while somebody else is on stage, sort of basically doing karaoke or something like that. Just sort of out there, not really doing anything except
just
moving
posing
around. And the fans, I mean, I will say this is a tribute to his fans, that he has huge, like, very loyal following. He's seen as, like, the pioneer of, like, sort of independent rap and all that sort of stuff. And so his fans are very loyal and they want to see him. And so they're justifiably very upset when they think they've been duped. So,
yeah, I think that this would have been a lot lower level. There are much lower stakes at the Alta conference than at a real concert.
This is true. Absolutely true. It'd be funny if, like you were saying, like his responses to questions and comments would have all been sort of scripted or mostly scripted. That would have been interesting. Like if somebody threw a curveball sort of question, I wonder how that would have gone on.
He would have had to make up something.
This, of course, reminds me of the conversation we had after or during, I guess, Winter Institute. We were talking about the small bookstore in Montana that wanted to have impersonators because they couldn't get authors to come all the way out there.
I still think that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
And Sans it's nothing I would ever go to in my life.
No, but I can understand if you lived in the middle of nowhere, it might not be the worst thing in the world, right?
I mean, I guess so. Although they're going to imitate these authors that, what are they, how are they really even going to imitate them? Although I had to go to my son's gymnastics meet, and there was a guy there. This was on Sunday, and there was a guy there. It was in Syracuse, and he looked exactly like Jonathan Franzen. Exactly.
Are you sure it was not Jonathan Franzen?
I'm certain it was not Jonathan Franzen, but it was so close that every time I saw him, I just like flinch. Like, I wanted to go attack him randomly.
Do you think there's money out there for a Jonathan Franzen impersonator?
There should be. He could be like the nice Franzen instead of the curmudgeonly Franzen.
Yeah, he would like constantly surprise people in public by how nice he was.
And agreeable to everything.
Right.
I love that, Oprah. Okay. That would be pretty fun. So one of the things you guys had, so Alta, one of the struggles that we have with, I think with publishers that are doing a ton of translations and with Alta as a translation organization is trying to reach outside of people who are already in this world. So there's all the preaching to the choir scenario or syndrome, where there's a ton of people that are translators or that are publishers of translations or whatever, review them exclusively or primarily, that are interested in things that events like this. And then there's, you know, the rest of the world, which is like 99% of all readers who aren't involved and may not even hear or know about certain events or be aware of different international literature activities, be it events or books or readings or conferences or whatever. And one of the things that was impressive to me about in the Lost podcast is that you were talking about the Albertine Fair, or you called it the Albertine Festival, right?
Yes.
The Albertine Festival, and how huge your draw was of people coming to the events, and that it was outside of just the normal people who come to the store all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, I've been thinking about this since I found out last week that you lost the podcast and that, you know, we might try to address these issues again. And I think a big key to running a successful sort of festival like that, and to me, there are two big keys. And I was also thinking, I'll get to this point after, but there could be more of these and this can be duplicated. But what I want to say more about that in a second. First, though, step one, I think the important to having these kind of things in service of promotion and attracting the kind of people that we're talking about, the 99% of readers who would be interested in a thing like this. They knew about it, not necessarily because it's a translation or because it's foreign or anything like that, just because it's interesting, right? You need to know you need to set that schedule. You need to know which authors are coming months and months in advance. The only way to truly draw enough media attention and publicity and like get listings and do your own sort of marketing within your own sort of little world so that, you know, word of mouth happens, is you have to know what's going on well in advance. And it needs to be publicly accessible. It can't be hard to find, you know, like it just needs to be easy for people to stumble upon, right? That's the idea. You want people to stumble upon, oh, hey, what's going on in New York this afternoon or this weekend or this month? And you give them enough time to have that chance. You know, it's kind of like what we say about, or that old fallacy about marketing is that you need to see something 7 times before you buy it or whatever.
Right.
It's kind of true with these sort of festivals. And Penn, to go to the other, example, they sort of rely at this point on their brand recognition, and you don't, like, the people who like Penn, who like what it stands for and what it does, sort of, you know, they're aware that sometime in the spring the Penn Festival is going to happen, and then when they see it the first time that spring, that March, they get the schedule, they think, oh yes, this is a thing I already like, and they pay attention again. But because of that, they're not really attracting a lot of new loyal followers. It's just they're sort of stuck in a rut, and they need to figure out a way to get beyond it. Not that most of their events aren't well attended, it's just, I feel like there's a little bit of, you know, they just need something a little fresh about it right now.
I agree with that. And like, for example, their website still has the dates for the 2015 event festival. And I know that they obviously must know. I mean, you have to plan these things pretty far in advance, if not a year in advance or more than a year, pretty close to that. So I'm sure that they know what dates are going to be taking place in 2016. And they could just put that as like, you know, they don't have to have the full schedule up there right this minute, although it's, you know, 5 months away. It's not a bad idea to have some headliners and some main events planned out, but at least to have the date.
Well, I will say I just got the dates last week at the bookstore because I believe we're going to be, you know, we're going to consider being a partner sort of host site again.
Right.
So, but that was literally maybe last week, 10 days ago, I got the actual schedule. for when it's going to be.
When is it?
I can't. I'd have to look it up in my email.
Because it ties into the Best Translated Book Award announcement sometimes.
Okay. The other thing about that is that yes, I agree with you. They should absolutely start filling it, even if they don't have the whole schedule, because it is so massive, that festival, that I understand, people drop out, people can't make it, people have visa problems, et cetera, et cetera. But if you know your headliners, put it in there. Just start whetting people's appetite. There's no reason not to do that. There's no reason to just unveil everything 1 month out, know?
Yep. I absolutely agree.
It allows people to start sort of setting up interviews and that sort of thing. I will say, and the second part of it, the other reason I think Albertine was successful this year in a different way that it was successful last year. Last year was the first one. The store just opened, so we were getting that sort of attention. This year, what we did is really pay attention to books that were coming out in English and when they were going to be getting attention in the media otherwise, by which I mean Kamel Daoud with the Meursault investigation and Riyad Sattouf with The Arb of the Future. And so it was timely. You know what I mean? And so you can do that. You can do that as a festival planner and say, okay, I know we have this sort of limited focus thing, but let's look what books are going to be published in translation at this time and sort of highlight and target those people to be your sort of cornerstone events and then fill in the gaps around there. And I think this goes back to scheduling things, planning things well in advance. If you can make things timely, everyone is going to be on your side. We had, before and after every event, we had people conducting interviews with the authors that were there because they're like, oh, they're here in the US. We need to take advantage and get an interview right now. And so that's other media, that's other attention for the authors, for the books. It's just a general sort of, knowledge about what's going on that is what you really need to generate buzz for these things. And what I was going to say about it all being replicable is, look, there's Albertine Festival, which, obviously focuses on Francophone literature and thinkers. Then you have the new literature from Europe, right?
Right.
It's just sort of pan-European, which is fine. And then there's PEN, which is just everything in translation.
Or not.
And then, but why can't there be more specific things? Why isn't there a Scandinavian literature one? Why isn't there a Iberian Peninsula?
I was going to say a Chinese, Japanese, Indonesian
or
sort
an
of
Asian one, or an African one, or a South American one. There is room in New York for all of these things. There are 52 weeks in the year. If the people should be welcome to jump in and start planning these things, and there's certainly money for this. The publishers are willing to support these things because they want all of their books to succeed, not just translations or just American stuff. Random House has every reason to want people to go to these sorts of things, to encourage diversity, to encourage wider readership of every kind. And then, of course, the host countries, organizations in those countries that have offices in the U.S. and that sort of thing, whose whole entire mission it is to promote this culture in the U.S. are going to be very happy to support, if not totally financially, but with whatever resources they can. There is room for this, and there are plenty of venues. And it sucks that most of these things happen in New York, but San Francisco could obviously host something like this. Chicago could do these kind of things. There is room for this, and I wish there were more of them than just PEN. It doesn't need to just be the PEN Festival every year,
Yeah, exactly. That's very true. I have one little joke about PEN is that I went to their press inquiries page, and one of the people that you can contact has an AOL.com email address. No offense to you if you listen to the show, but I don't know. The second I saw that, it's I'm never going to email that. I just would not.
Yeah, a little unprofessional. Get that person a PEN email address.
Yeah, seriously. Or whatever. The other thing that we talked about, not to try and replicate the lost episode, but was that a lot of these festivals that are taking place that aren't exclusively translation focused, but that are happening that are public big festivals like the Texas Book Festival and Wordstock in Portland have become extremely successful, it seems, in part because they hired people from New York who already had a series of connections and friends that could get different publishers invested in and coming there and participating in it. And that both of those festivals seem to be very vibrant in comparison to Penn's festival.
Yes, and a part of that is, their ability to. We're talking about the people who are hired to run these festivals. Their ability to sort of encourage publishers to send authors who don't live in Portland or Austin to these places, because, and look, it's unfortunate that, look, you could have a Texas book fair that had nothing but Texas writers, and it would be fine. But truth is, a lot of those readers there are going to want to see writers from other parts of the countries who live in New York or California or wherever, and to encourage those writers to come, it needs to have a certain level of vibrancy. And when you have somebody running it who knows what they're doing, who has the trust of the publishers, that's going to encourage that. And it's like it just starts building and building and building, and you're going to get bigger and bigger and better authors every year for these kinds of things because of that. It's not to say that tiny little focused festivals aren't worth anything. It's just it depends on which kind of festival you want to run. If you want to have a well-respected literary festival, you can't just have it be totally local. That's just as bad as having it be nothing but people from outside. There has to be a mix.
Yeah, exactly. Like the community and broadening the community.
Right.
Which makes sense. And both of those, I haven't gone to either the Texas Book Festival or Wordstock, but I've heard reports back from both about how well attended things were and how exciting it was and all that kind of stuff. So those seem pretty solid, along with like the LA Times Festival of Books. You didn't like being there as an exhibitor, I believe, right?
No, the problem is, I don't know. It's a little unlike, look, when you go to the Brooklyn Book Festival, it's booksellers, it's publishers, it's people who have tables and booths are related to the publishing world in some way. They make books in some way. I'm not saying that there aren't like the random self-published people with 9/11 conspiracy theory pamphlets to hand out. Those people are there, but
those people are everywhere.
By and large, it is mostly publishers of some are independent comic book publishers, and some are independent publishers from, who do things only in Japanese, but for the American market. And they're all there, but they're all related to books. The LA Times Festival is so massive, and they hold it in these, it's California, it's wide open. And so they have, it's, the one I went to is held on, and I think this is a permanent move, it's now on USC's campus instead of UCLA. Either way, just massive amounts of space. And so most of more than half of what's there is book related. But then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that is just random sort of people trying to sell you stuff. Like, like Toyota will have a booth with a car. And it's just like, they're just there because there's a gathering of people.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with books per se. And that, I think, is when things go a little bit too far. And I understand that like Toyota paying whatever they paid for their space helps fund the whole thing. But it's a little too much. It just seems like one of those random street fairs in New York that sell the same shit at every single one of them every weekend. Like there's nothing unique about them.
Uber has a booth, I'm sure.
Right, exactly. And it's just, I don't know. I just wish it, like on the one hand, we want things to reach out and to entice more people. But on the other hand, you're sort of, you're inviting everyone to the party, and it sort of ruins it,
Yeah, you mentioned the Brooklyn Book Fair, which I forgot initially to reference, but I feel like the Brooklyn Book Fair is outdoing Penworld Voices. Like they're similar in certain ways, and different, very different in others. But like I feel like they become much bigger and much more like a thing that people plan for and attend and go to than Penworld Voices at this moment. Well, it wasn't the case 7 years ago.
Part of it is, I think, that going to their events is so much easier than going to Penn.
Yeah, and it's free, right? They're all, or do they charge for their event?
No, nothing is charged. It's all run through the city, so it's all like the borough president sort of runs it, so it goes through that. So it's all free. I will say some of the events are not particularly well attended, and it's part of the same reason that I think Penn has issues with certain events is that they due to a lack of like central not office space, central event space.
Uh-huh.
They sort of end up with like random events in, Borough Hall room 304 or something like that, which is not always easy for people to find, and it's not very easy to find from where you are on the outside in the space where the book fair is actually held. You have to go inside. There's sort of, it's not the easiest thing in the world. Everything would benefit from just having a centralized location with like 4 rooms right next to each other. But I understand that that's not always possible.
Yeah, yeah.
But in terms of attracting people and a thing that people look forward to, yeah, I would say that the Brooklyn Book Festival, Book Fair is definitely, rapidly catching up to Penn in terms of prestige among writers and people who pay attention to these things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we go down and take a booth out there, but we don't go to Penrolled Voices. So, not that means anything necessarily, but as one example, it seems like we break even at least at the Brooklyn Book Festival, and Penn is just like amorphous. There's no real way to judge it, and the ways to judge it don't seem to work in its favor.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying this for years that what Penn needs to do is find a university or somewhere willing to just give up their space for a week and let them have all the events there, let them have all the books on sale in one location, and it just cut down on the mobility of the damn thing and just centralize it, And that's not saying don't have like primetime events in sort of fancy places or bars or things like that, but the stuff that's going on during the day that's, that's very specifically focused, just put it all in one place. It would just make everything so much easier.
I agree.
And the RSVPing and ticketing, and I understand they need to pay for the event, and they need to pay for authors to come over, but I don't know. I personally, I don't like that whole, it's a level of hassle that I think turns off a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if there's anything else to say about these festivals that we didn't say on that podcast that doesn't exist, but one thing that I realized that has happened since we last talked was the National Book Awards were announced. So we couldn't find any news to talk about in addition to this, but I was wondering if you had a take on any of the National Book Award winners.
I actually don't know anyone who won besides Coates.
Yeah, which is the one of the books that I've read.
I guess I can announce this. He's going to be the grand sort of moderator for the Albertine Festival next year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
We asked him to do it this year, but obviously his book was coming out and he was too busy. And yeah, he's spending some time in France for the next year and was really intrigued by the idea. And I didn't personally meet with him, but my boss and our cultural counselor met with him last week and finalized everything, and seems like it's a go. So
good.
Should be interesting.
Big year for him.
Yeah, and deservedly so.
Yeah. Have you read that book?
I haven't read it yet. I got a copy right when it came out, lent it to a friend, and have not seen it since.
There you go.
So that happened. Yeah, he's a really nice guy. I've emailed with him since like this whole thing about the festival started, but years and years and years ago when he was writing for the Atlantic mostly, or Harper's, I forget where.
I think it was the Atlantic, wasn't it?
Wasn't it the Atlantic? I had him come to an event at when I was doing the events at McNally Jackson, and he was just fantastic. He was great. He's
also going to be writing a Black Panther comic book for Marvel.
What?
Yeah.
No way.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
right.
Isn't it though? I was going to say, if you talk to him again, tell him I'm really looking forward to that.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Badass. Yep.
That's really great.
I don't know when it starts, sometime next year, but it was announced in September.
Marvel really has their shit together. I just want to say that. In general.
Motherfucking Jessica Jones, man. I'm locked into Jessica Jones.
That was going to be my rave, damn you.
Oh, okay. Well, let's pause that and we'll talk about Jessica Jones later.
Right.
Yeah, the other thing I saw in terms of but related to this, because we're getting to that point in time in which all the best books of the year lists are coming out, and Publishers Weekly had theirs last week, and they had Between the World and Me on there, along with a New Directions book.
Which one?
Beauty is a Wound.
Interesting.
Which I'm going to use in my class.
Are you?
Yes.
It's not my favorite book, but
It's
a very judicious way of saying I got well enough into it to know that I didn't like it. And
yeah. Well, I usually choose books for my class, some that I've read, some that I haven't, so that I can find time, force myself to find time to read them. And this was the one, and I managed to do, I think I have 9 books in this class, and they're from 8 different languages. So this works because it's a language that is otherwise not represented, obviously.
Right.
In Indonesian. But you know what else is on here that's super funny? One of the books that you will appreciate is The Argonauts by Maggie Nelson's on here.
Of course, yeah.
She has a new book coming out, or a reissue, I guess, coming out from Grey Wolf later this year, or next year. And then, and this is super funny, Imperium by Christian Kracht, that book that we made fun of their jacket copy.
Oh, God.
It's on here. And here's the description of it. An oddball masterpiece that begins with thumb-sucking nudist August Engelhardt fleeing Germany in 1902 to establish a South Seas utopia, one in which coconuts are the only food. Disaster predictably strikes the idealistic, naive Engelhardt, a real historical figure, and the strange engrossing tale by turns slapstick, philosophical, and suspenseful. I still think this book sounds terrible.
The thumb-sucking part is new to me. That wasn't in the jacket copy.
Yeah, I don't remember the thumb-sucking part being there either, but thumb-sucking nudist August Engelhardt flees Germany to establish a utopia. It just sounds like, I don't know. It just sounds like groaning.
Can I just very quickly, I don't know that this is still a thing, but there was definitely a moment in time when anything that was sort of based on a historical figure sort of piqued people's interest a little bit more because it felt more serious or something like that.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they mentioned in there that he was a real historical figure. And in the midst of this, whatever this was, I don't know how many years ago, I remember talking to my father about some movie, and he told me, he's like, but it's based on a true story. And I was like, that doesn't make it a good movie. He's like, no, but it makes it interesting. I was like, does it? Like, just because it's based on a true story, it makes it inherently more interesting? I don't understand that.
It sounds like fucking Law and Order.
Right.
It's ripped from the headlines. Like, okay, if it wasn't ripped from the headlines, would it be any different? Would it be like, yeah, I don't get that. We actually have a problem right now in relation to that, sort of, with our book Rochester Knockings that's about the Fox sisters. So it does involve the historical figures. It's that thing that you're talking about, more or less. But my belief on why we're not getting a ton of publicity for it is that locally they're like, oh, we don't want, like, we had one local review that was fairly negative because it was like, well, this isn't my Rochester. Like, there's like a sort of like protection vibe to it of like, you know, the real people from this French author can't write about Rochester because he's not from Rochester. And this review is written by someone. I need to slam this person as publicly as this podcast is because it's super funny to me. But this reviewer, their bio at the bottom of the review is like, whatever the person's name was, is a fur mama with 2 extremely bratty dogs.
That's a term?
Apparently, yes, it is. And you can find, they have like a hashtag on Instagram and everything. A fur mama.
Did not. You learn something every day.
And sometimes those things you learn suck. But at the same time, we seem that, I think the national media is like, well, who cares? This is about like these specific people in this town, which it kind of isn't because it's like this people who founded spiritualism, but it's kind of weird. Like, I know what you mean about the historical figure thing, where it seems like it should be appealing, or some people find it appealing. I don't necessarily, but it's also maybe there's been a surfeit of those things. And
yeah. Well, that's for sure.
No one's paying attention anymore.
Yeah.
Like, that book is weird, too, because it's not particularly French at all. It's not particularly... I mean, it's about Rochester, but not really. and it's about spiritualists, and the people who are spiritualists don't like it because they don't want to admit that the people who were behind their religion or behind their belief system are like a little corrupt.
Everyone's a little corrupt. Didn't I see something in PW about that book?
Yeah, you saw something in PW about our party for that book.
Is that what it was? I
Yep.
thought it was about the book.
I mean, the book's in there, but it was for the gala that we had surrounding the book, which was exhausting but went really well.
All galas should be exhausting. If not, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, dude. It's too bad that you're not going to be near this area anytime soon because I won one of the silent auction things for a distillery tour for 20 people.
20 people?
Yeah, it's
Do
a
you know 20 people?
$200 value. No, and that's why I'm saying, like, if you're around, it'd be like we could schedule it whatever day, and you can go to the distillery with me and get fucking lit. But instead, we've got to find 20 friends now.
You're going to be going to the bus station and just picking up random people
Probably, most likely.
who will be very grateful for the distillery tour.
I'm sure. Hey, I don't have any money for you, but here's a ticket to get some free whiskey and moonshine.
It's great. Wait, what distillery is up there?
Black Button Distillery. It's new, newish. It's been around here for a few years. It was founded here. That's the one that we got it from. There's I think that there's another distillery too, but I can't remember. But there's a shitload of breweries, obviously.
Yeah, that I knew about, but
Yeah, but Black Button is the main one.
I forget. We're totally off track here, but I believe the New York State government passed some laws several years back that really eased up the distillery opening. The regulations and the hurdles to opening, because they were trying to encourage that sort of, because upstate New York is sort of famously bereft of business since all the factory work left, and they saw some opportunity with distilleries, and so they've been making it very easy for people to open distilleries upstate.
Yeah, I just looked, and there's a slew of regional distilleries up here now.
That's why.
Yep.
They've been trying to, if you were going to do it in Pennsylvania or Vermont or wherever, they're like, no, New York is the place to go. We'll make it easy. It's kind of like how, Delaware has those really lax tax laws for corporate headquarters and things like that.
Yeah. Really lax, as in AKA non-existent.
Non-existent.
Pretty much. Yeah, I don't know. I have nothing else to add to any of this. The other best books. Oh, I do, actually. One of the other best books on here is obviously Story of the Lost Child by Elena Ferrante, which I have been listening to an audiobook, not this one, but the second volume of it, and I don't really like it.
I told you, I read the first one and liked it just fine, but was never compelled to keep going. It's just...
Yeah, I thought, like, I'll at least catch up. I feel like I need to know. I need to have read them to be able to be informed. And I really, because I mean, Days of Abandonment is brilliant and is stylistically interesting. It's very French, even though, I mean, I know she's Italian, but it's very much like one of those French. So what I'm looking for, the bookstore is basically about them. It feels like it's about the person's life itself, and it's very like Any or No, and that sort of that vibe of
Right.
writer, and aggressive in that way, and dark and emotional. But these are not that. And I read the first one too, and I was just like, it's okay, but I feel like I at least can give it another try. But it's just melodrama and not particularly interesting to me.
Yeah, it's beautifully written and just not that interesting.
But so it's like not stylistically unique enough in my opinion. Like, it's just fine. It's like as if you took everything and boiled it down to a mass of just fineness. Like, there's nothing wrong about it. It's not bad, but it's not like, holy shit, I've never heard anyone do things with language in this way. It's like just very much straightforward melodrama.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah.
totally great. Which, I mean, a lot of people love them, so clearly we're in the minority here, but...
Fair enough. Like, I'm out.
I wanted to ask you something.
Okay.
I don't know how long of a conversation this might turn into, but as we're recording this, it is Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I, of course, work retail and will be at work Friday morning. I certainly don't expect it to be crazy Black Friday. There will be no videos of people stampeding a la Walmart or whatever. But it does bring to mind, because I always wonder this, because a lot of people buy books as presents. I would never buy anyone a book as a present unless I absolutely knew that they would love it and had not read it. And I was just curious, like, as somebody so invested in books with a lot of friends, presumably who read a lot of books, do you buy books as gifts? And how do you? I don't know. To me, it seems weird. I've tried to buy like my father books before, and he never reads them. And even though I thought I like figured out exactly what to get him, and he just never ends up reading them. And my mother, when she asks me what I'm reading and I tell her, she just has me stop halfway through because she says it sounds appalling, like that kind of thing. So I've given up entirely giving people books. Like I have friends that I will give books to that I've read because I know they haven't read them yet and that they will absolutely love them. But like the Christmas gifts,
Dude,
whatever, like, I don't know. That seems like a really strange thing to me. Do you do it?
I'll get to that part in a second, but you cannot discourage people from giving books as gifts, seeing as that is both of our livelihoods. Like this is.
I'm not trying to discourage it. I'm just saying I think we're a little too close to it.
Yeah, well, what I'd say is like most
To
people
be
that
able to do it.
I don't give presents to friends really. If I did, like I probably wouldn't give them books because they're already working in this and they get all the books anyways. Like I don't know most of the people I know that I'm friends with have access to basically any book they want.
Well, there's that as well. So what do you get a book reader who's read everything or has access to
A
everything?
tote bag.
It's a tote bag.
But like my parents, I used to give them sometimes some of our books just so they'd know what it is they do, or my brother and his wife. But not so much. When I was younger, I would a lot more because I think people are at the age too where they're more malleable and it would be easier to like give someone something they weren't aware of and they would actually take a chance and read it. But now no one has any time and everyone has strong opinions and there's no way that they're going to like the things that I like. I don't think that they will. And I feel like they think that if I give it to them, it's going to be too hard.
What? Well, there is that as well. It's like it's almost that's what I was trying to say. Like we're too close to it to be able to like I know the subtle differences of every book on the table at the store, even if I haven't read them.
Yeah.
The idea that I'm going to choose one of these things for a friend whose tastes I also know pretty well. It's like it's too much pressure and it's too weird and I don't know.
You know what I really liked in the bookstore though was recommending gifts for other people to give to their friends. I had a great time with that. I'm more than happy to do that anytime. But for people I know, yeah, you're right. I can't even think of. I mean, unless it's something that's like a unique, like picture book or something that's unusual, like fiction stuff, probably less so. Although I did give I don't know how to divulge all of this. I don't think I can make this work, but I did give one of my friends a book present yesterday. But it's part of an in joke related to that Rock in Your Mouth podcast. So it's like specific,
right? And yeah, obviously you sell a lot of like more generic sort of books and things like that. I remember when we were publishing the Emily Dickinson book that we did a few years ago.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Books Nothings. I remember, we were deciding how many to print or whatever, and I was like, every college girl who has expressed an interest in poetry is going to get this as a gift from her grandmother.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure that that's exactly what happened based on the sales. Because it's like, grandma goes into the bookstore and she's like, oh, Elizabeth loves poetry. She'll love this. And it's like the easiest gift in the world, right? I mean, I have no problem with that. Like, yes, absolutely. More people should be reading obscure poems from Emily Dickinson. It's just, I don't know. I'm not sure how much thought was involved in that. There was like, granddaughter likes poetry, there's a poetry book kind of thing,
Yeah, I was thinking about Emily Dickinson the other day because during the New York Literature Festival, I think Naya said that she's worked with some other people and translated some Emily Dickinson poems into Danish. And it's like, well, do they all go to the beat of the melody to Gilligan's Island theme song? Because all of Emily Dickinson's poems do in English. And that's how you can usually pick them out if you're given like a question like on the GRE specialized English test. If there's a poem there and you can read it to that song, then it's Emily Dickinson. It's like I had no idea about that. So like I'm guessing that in Danish she sounds like not just different because it's different, but totally different. Like the rhythms and the music are different music, which just is not surprising. But I just thought it was kind of fun.
Wait, are there YouTube clips of people singing Dickinson poems?
I have no idea. I would never have looked that up until this moment in time.
Needs to happen. If not, somebody out there on YouTube needs to make this happen.
Yeah. But is your store crazy? Emily Dickinson to Gilligan's Island. Yep, there are. Wow. So at your store, is it super crazy for Thanksgiving and post Thanksgiving Christmas rush?
No, it wasn't last year, but we had just opened, so I think it'll be a little different this year. By which I mean busier. I'm not sure. It's such a specialized store. Like, we're not going to get like the rush of shoppers. Right. That's just not going to happen. But I do expect December to be our best sales month.
Right.
Over the next year or whatever.
You'd hope so.
I would hope so. And partly because people will be buying the more expensive books, the graphic novel editions of The Stranger and things like that we have that, seem to make great gifts and that sort of thing. So
we usually did at the bookstores I worked at, and January is always also really, really good for bookstores. But now that you're talking about the gift thing, I feel like we did a lot more with gift certificates and with people bringing back books to return.
Well, that sucks.
And exchange. But they just exchange them for something else.
This gets back to my original question, is like giving books as gifts, not easy.
Yeah, not anymore. I just give, gifts are hard. I'm the worst at it. I'm really bad.
Well, yeah, I'm also atheist, so Christmas is kind of weird to me. And I'm a Marxist, so the whole capital. I don't know. It's a very confusing time of year for me.
Although I'm more than happy to buy my kids a PlayStation for Christmas, because we accidentally got FIFA 2016 with that somehow. I'm not entirely sure what happened there, but that's we're stuck with it.
Yeah. Plus, it'll make them happy, right? Isn't that the goal?
Yeah, the goal is just to make people happy, I suppose.
Who cares about, enriching their lives? There's plenty of other time for that.
That's all the other days of the year.
Exactly.
Oh, man. I have these on my desk just because I was going to ask you about them and look at them myself. But do you guys carry the Gabrielle Whitcop books that just came out from Wakefield?
Doesn't sound familiar. I just ordered a bunch of Wakefield books. I didn't see anything new.
The titles are Murder Most Serene and Exemplary Departures, but she's like the heir to, self-styled heir to the Marquis de Sade, according to their description. And they sound super crazy and like the sort of thing that you'd be really into.
Wait, am I looking at the right book? Is it a black cover?
Yeah.
Really ugly cover?
It doesn't look like... They are both very ugly. They don't look like normal Wakefield books. They're also glossy, which aren't like the other Wakefield books.
Huh. You know what? This is really unfortunate. I think I was looking through their catalog and I saw her name and I just didn't assume it was French.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, obviously. But it does sound like something that that you'd be into.
Yes, it does. It does.
Yeah, and I think so the reason that her name his last name doesn't seem French is that she married a German deserter in Paris during the occupation and helped hide him from the Nazis, and his last name was Whitcop.
There you go.
I don't know what her original maiden name is. It's not listed in here. But her first novel is The Necrophiliac.
Yeah, I'm reading that now. That's great. I'm going to have to order these. But yeah, I love what Wakefield does, just in general.
Yeah, they're really beautiful.
I just wish they got more attention. Like, if they just hired a publicist or something, Do
they not have a publicist?
Doesn't seem to me. Does it to you? I don't know.
We review a lot of their books, and there's a lot of them that I have stacked up that I want to read that I just haven't gotten to. These ones, and there's one called, oh, Jesus. I have to look it up because it looks so amazing and just wild. But it's like, where is it? It's got Rox, R-O-X-X in the title of it. This one. Rakox, the Billionaire and the Great Race, yeah. The two novellas from the inventor of perpetual motion and godfather of German science fiction. This is one that I have on my shelf. I need to find time to actually read.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I was looking at my Goodreads. Turns out I'm really bad at Goodreads.
Yeah. Somehow this does not sound surprising.
But,
Although you were writing reviews and stuff for a while.
oh yeah, I don't know. I don't have time for this. It's so as of this moment, 55% of the books I've read this year are by women.
There you go.
So I think, and I'm reading. If I just read the rest of the year, read books by women, I think I should be fine in terms of meeting my goal.
Right, because you wanted it to be 2/3, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about this in January about what I've learned from this experience, and it has nothing to do with like what I've learned from reading books by women. It's more about what I've learned from trying to read specifically for a year, which I do not like.
Yeah.
This is the end result.
We'll have to talk about this more then too. I've been having this problem where like there's books that I need to read for either like should read for review or for that book project with Steven or like for the class that I'm teaching, and it's some reason, or like books that we're publishing, and I have this anti-reaction to that where it's like I don't feel like I don't want to be forced into having to do this. Like I'm come home after working all day and I'm like, oh, now I have to like pick up that book that I have to be reading tonight, and it's like, God, can I just this isn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
I like all the books. Like when I read them, I'm like, oh yeah, this is really good. But it's like, I'm in one of those ruts.
Yeah, there's a moment last week when I was like I'd finished a book and I wanted to read something just light, and was going to a bar, and like I knew I was going to be early, so I was like, what do I read? And I was going to either reread The Grifters, the Thompson novel, or like some Lawrence Block, like one of the random ones. He's written so many books that I hadn't read yet because they were both small little paperbacks, and I knew I could read them in 2 days and then move on to like the work sort of reading that I have to do. And then the last minute, my friend was like, "Oh, I'll be on time," and I was like, "Well, I guess I'm not reading for fun."
It was that chance.
Yeah, I'm looking for. I would really like to retire and be able to read anything I want at any given moment.
That's what. Yeah, I need. Yeah, I've been finishing. I'm almost done with the newest Villadine book, Radiant Terminus, which it's really incredible. It's very dark, and it's very much in a weird way relates to Jessica Jones as well. But very tangentially, and mostly just because I'm reading that and watching that show at the same time. There's enough like themes that pop up in both of them that I'm making the connection that no one else would. But that's really good. I really like that. I think that's spectacular. But I don't know. I've also been reading Home because I wanted to read more of the Indonesian literature from other parts of the world I don't read. Like I always read Latin American stuff and European stuff, and more women writers, and that's just okay.
I don't know much about it at all.
Yeah, it's like it came out almost identical. I'm at the same time as Beauty is a Wound, and got like no attention.
Yeah,
but it's more like it's a bit more of like the history of a family that has emigrated to France from Indonesia, like the father of the family, and he married a French woman, and her daughter is now exploring like what happened in Indonesia in the 60s and why her father was never able to return before he died, all that kind of stuff. It's fine. Everything's fine. So should we do our rants and raves?
Yeah, I do have a rant before we begin to raving about Jessica Jones, which is fantastic. So the Paris got attacked a couple of weeks back, as everyone I'm sure is well aware, and it's very tragic. And second time in a year they had the Charlie Hebdo attacks, and then this, a lot more people killed. All of them just innocent civilians. And then, so it makes things a little weird at the bookstore. Mm-hmm. And it's, generally people come in and they express their sympathies, and it's fine. And, it's not too much of a thing. No one is it's nothing excessive, when just life goes on, and, we try to make sense of it as best we can and move on. Then Charlie Hebdo comes out the following Tuesday. And have you seen this cover?
I did, with the holes.
So it says, they have weapons, fuck them, we have champagne.
That's right, yes.
we had a number of calls to the store and emails to the store asking if we would carry it, if we would be getting copies. Because we did, in the wake of the Charlie Hebdo attacks, get copies just because, we felt it was part of our responsibility to sort of, get it out there and allow people to actually see what the magazine is about. This year, for this, we don't normally carry the magazine. We don't carry magazines, period. It's just not. It's too hard to get magazines from France and get them reliably and all that sort of thing. It's just not our business model, right? But we did get people who wanted to know if we were going to have copies, including more than a few people who wanted multiple copies. And at that point, I have to feel that these people are just disaster pornographers. And I really fucking hate that. This is a horrible thing that happens. And then there's this attempt, this humorous sort of fuck you sort of thing that comes out in graphic form. It's a magazine. And I understand that there's a very good sentiment there. But to try to, buy multiple copies of this, which, let's be honest, isn't it hard to see through this? This person wants to make money off of this.
Yeah.
And that's fucking despicable.
Yeah.
It's just a horrible, horrible thing. I mean, never mind wanting a souvenir from something like a tragedy to begin with. That's bad enough. But trying to profit off of it beyond that is just horrible. It makes me, in the wake of these things, you always want to try to find, the humanity, the good that people muster in the wake of such tragedy. And then you get people like this who just want to fucking make a buck off of it. And God, it's just awful.
That sucks. I remember you talking about this when the after the Charlie Hebdo attack and people coming in and taking selfies with the magazine.
Yeah.
Everyone sucks. Everything sucks.
And I understand that dealing with these things is not easy, and the psychology of the whole thing, on a massive population-wide scale is just incomprehensible, and I get that. But that's not the answer. Buying copies to keep for posterity, it's not the answer. That is not helping anything.
Yeah, I have a mini rant too. In that I sent this to you yesterday, and it's not so much of a rant, just something that's just well, actually, it ties into things. But I saw that I was going through updating our database and getting all the stuff for the Best Translated Book Award, which I just finished the fiction part, and I'm almost done with poetry, and it's a nightmare. But I noticed how many is going through all these catalogs, how many fucking Patrick Modiano books are coming out. It's insane. There's 8 of them coming out this year and by February of 2016. And they're from a variety of presses: Yale University Press, New York Review of Books, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, and other press, which is the one that stands out to both of us as that seems weird. But I that's great. He wins the Nobel Prize. Everyone's going to publish him. He has a ton of backlists. All the books will be made available. But in some ways, it seems both overkill and it's not going to accomplish anything. I look at all these and I'm well, I probably won't read any of them. I don't even know. I don't even care which one to even start with. We don't need 9 Modiano books in a 1-year period.
No, I mean, I will say there are people at the bookstore who are reading everything. They come in once a week and they're do you have any more Modiano? It's wow, really? Read something else.
I mean, there are other books.
There are other books. There are other authors who are good, even though they have not won the Nobel.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know it's probably all because of Gallimard. I'm sure Ansolange is more than happy to sell rights to a bunch of different worthy presses, because the more books, the merrier. But I don't know. From my perspective as a reader and or person who has to compete for review attention and space on bookstore shelves, I don't need 9 fucking Modiano books.
Oh, it's more than that, by the way.
I know. It's a shitload, because I don't count any of the translations or the reissues.
As a bookseller in a French store, let me tell you how annoying it is that more and more of our table space is taken up by piles of his books. It's
Okay.
like, oh, I've got these interesting Wakefield books. Where am I going to put them?
Yeah. But no one's going to buy them anyways because they're just going to be like, well, where's the Modiano? Is it like, is this Marquis de Sade, is it Modiano? Modiano de Sade? Can you just make it that?
I will say, when we put the interesting stuff on the table, it does sell.
Yeah.
That's good. But yeah, it's a constant struggle for space and so much Modiano. And you got to take it because it will sell, you know?
Yes, very true. So Jessica Jones. Okay, but wait, preface this. I've only seen the first 4 episodes.
I've only seen 1 episode.
Oh, okay. So I was going to say, don't ruin this because tonight and tomorrow I'm just going on a bender, so...
I will say, the only reason I've only seen 1 episode is because I watched all of Aziz Ansari's show.
Oh, see, I don't like him, and everyone keeps saying the show is good and I should watch it, but I've always hated him, so I'm just not sure. Is it good?
It's okay. There are some episodes that are great and some that are less than great. Eric from the Tim and Eric show is in it.
Uh-huh.
He's great.
Okay.
He's fantastic. The only other interesting thing to note about this show is that Aziz Ansari's actual parents are in the show. And his father, although it's very obvious that like multiple takes were necessary for every scene that any of them are in. His father is fantastic. Like, he's just naturally funny and sort of kooky, and it works. His poor mother cannot deliver the lines any more woodenly. Like, she just sounds so wooden and flat, and I just feel so bad. Like, watching them on screen, it's hard to watch. Like, I'm sure she's a really lovely, she seems like a very great mom, I will say that. And she's just not an actor, you know? And
Not everyone's an actor.
Not everyone's an actor. All right. But anyway, Jessica Jones, which I didn't know anything about. So I had my friend David, who knows much more about comic books than me. So he gave me a little background, which really helped.
Awesome. Yeah, she's awesome.
For the first episode, it really helped sort of ground me. And the show is really great, partly because the storytelling, you can tell, is going to take its time and you're going to get there. But there's also like episode-specific sort of things that are happening. There's some... And then the best part, I think, is probably a budgetary constraint, is that she has quote-unquote superpowers. They're not, apparently she's supposed to be able to, like, what is it called? Controlled flying?
Yeah, she's like if you had like a scale of like 1 to 10, with 10 being like a Thor or something, she's like a 4.
Right. But, she can jump really high and pick up a car and things like that.
Break a lock.
Yes, she just like opens any door because she's that strong,
Mm-hmm.
But it's all done in such a way that they just never show it, right? So There's no actual stunts. There's no any like special effects because it's very cheap to do it that way. But it also makes it just sort of part of her character in a way that isn't like showing it off, right?
Yeah. Hey, did you watch Daredevil?
I loved Daredevil.
Me too. And so Daredevil and this and Luke Cage and Iron Fist all tie together into like one at the end. But they're all of that kind of ground level. They're strong, but they're not like cosmic or over the top.
Right.
Like street level things. That's why I like that. And it's like got that noir vibe to it. I love just wait. It's the first episode's the last 10 minutes are haunting as shit and disturbing. But then it gets better and better.
What I loved about Daredevil, apart from the fight scenes, were just breathtakingly shot.
Oh my god, those are so good.
Like that single take overhead sort of fight scene in, I think it's episode 2. It's just amazing. But they do sort of tie into what the larger Marvel universe is. Like if you saw Avengers 2, they reference everything that happens in that in Daredevil, and it's just referred to as like, all that stuff that happened in Hell's Kitchen, and that's it. And you're just sort of left figuring out what that means. And it's just it's very well put together. They really have their shit together right now.
They seriously do. Yeah, that works really well. And the Jessica Jones comic book, Alias, is worth reading if anyone likes Jessica Jones. It's very cool too. And it's really based on that. So
in addition to the Ta-Nehisi Coates comic book that you were talking about for the Black Panthers. Do you know who CM Punk is?
No, I don't think so.
He was a former WWE wrestler.
Oh, okay.
Straight edge guy. Anyway, he just quit a couple years ago. He is doing a comic book for Marvel as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This is getting crazy. What is he doing?
He's doing Drax.
Oh, okay. Who's kind of like a wrestling figure. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of comic book people are. But.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose so.
Wow, this got nerdy.
Yeah, that got really weird. It's like a dive into other territories that I'm aware of, but nevertheless. So yeah, everyone go watch Jessica Jones. I'm gonna continue rooting on my Spartans now that I'm watching fucking college football again after I gave it up for a week.
It's fair. It's fair.
Back in. I'm back in.
To root for now that my team is almost certainly not going to make the playoffs. So.
You could have a chance if Michigan State loses to Penn State.
That's not going to happen.
I don't think that's going to happen either. They're not going to let that. They're not going to fuck up. They're pretty well disciplined. They don't fuck up very often anymore.
Except the kicker.
He's awful. Like, he is just bad. Like, really, really bad. So, yep. But anyways, that was fun. That was a fun weekend. I don't have anything else. I guess, are you going anywhere for Thanksgiving?
No, because I have to go to work on Friday. So.
Yeah.
My plan is to go see Creed.
Oh, that comes out this weekend, doesn't it?
Comes out Wednesday night. So I think I'm going to go on like Thanksgiving, go to the first screening, and then watch some football and eat some food. So
yeah, hell yeah. Good football games. And you're a big Rocky fan, aren't you?
Yes. I mean, yes. The last one I did not particularly like. I forget what it was. It was just called like Rocky Balboa or something like that, where he was still fighting. That one I didn't particularly care for, but I think Rocky IV is just a masterpiece. So.
How many of these are there now?
I think this would be the 6th.
Jesus, it's like
or 7th?
Fast and the Furious style.
Yeah. Wait, so there's Rocky V, then Rocky Balboa. So yeah, this is the 7th.
Damn. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyways. Okay, well, I'll let you go. Then we'll talk again next week.
If you want a second to breathe, I'll give you all of my love, I'll give you all that you need. Don't worry, I'm not in a hurry, not going nowhere, I'm not going nowhere, yeah. If you want a second to breathe, I'll give you all of my love, I'll give you all that you need. Don't worry, I'm not in a hurry, not going nowhere.
You learn something every day.
And sometimes those things you learn suck.